From not-so-fantastic films to movies that made young actors wish they'd never been cloned, these are the big screen roles from the turn of the millennium that these actors regret. Released in 2002, Star Trek Nemesis was Tom Hardy's first big Hollywood movie. But it's also the film he probably wishes he'd never made. The British star who played the villain Shinzan, a twisted clone of Patrick Stewart's Jean-Luc Picard, rarely talks about the role. But when he has, he said it was a terrible experience. The fact that the movie was a failure just makes it worse.
Were you a fan of Star Trek before you did the movie?
Not particularly, no.
As described by Patrick Stewart, Hardy wasn't friendly on set and ended up rubbing most of the cast the wrong way. But Hardy had a good reason for that. In 2013, he told Total Film, "I was terrified. Every day on that set, I was terrified," which worked for the character anyway. Shinzan is a bitter and reclusive villain, so it made sense. But his discomfort didn't make the production easy. Hardy continued, "You can't hide that. The camera will pick it up. I was genuinely out of my depth. The whole thing was, how could I do this? I took it very seriously." Ultimately, Nemesis became a career footnote for Hardy, as well as the worst-performing Star Trek movie ever made. For all of her fame, Jessica Alba hasn't starred in many movies that have been reviewed positively, with only 3 in her catalog ever reaching fresh status on Rotten Tomatoes. Yet for all the failures and flops she starred in, there may only be one role that she actually regrets: Sue Storm, aka the Invisible Woman, in the 2 Fantastic Four films from 2005 and 2007. The Fantastic Four movies weren't just poorly reviewed, but also financial disappointments, not living up to Spider-Man or X-Men standards. To make matters worse, Alba claims that working on them was such a dreadful ordeal that she nearly quit Hollywood altogether, telling Elle, "I wanted to stop acting. I hated it. I really hated it." Alba recounted an infamous incident when, while filming her character's death scene, director Tim Story wanted her to, quote, "cry pretty." For Alba, that moment made her reevaluate her entire career. She recalled, "It all got me thinking, am I not good enough? Are my instincts and my emotions not good enough? And so I just said, it. I don't care about this business anymore." As an emerging superstar, Channing Tatum signed up to play Duke in 2009's G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. But as the main character of the franchise, he quickly came to regret his decision. In fact, he hated The Rise of Cobra so much that he asked to be killed off when it came time for the sequel. In 2013, Tatum aired his grievances on The Howard Stern Show.
Look, I'll be honest, I hate that movie.
You do? Why do you hate that movie?
I hate it. The script wasn't any good.
Nevertheless, having signed a 3-picture deal with Paramount Pictures years before, he wasn't given much of a choice. Duke was promptly killed off at the beginning of the sequel, G.I. Joe: Retaliation. Charlize Theron took home an Academy Award for Best Actress thanks to her leading role in 2003's Monster, making her a Hollywood A-lister and one of the most sought-after leading women of the era. It was a major turnaround for her, as just a few years earlier, she was in one of the worst movies of the 2000s, the lifeless action thriller Reindeer Games, starring Ben Affleck. In 2008, she told Esquire, "That was a bad movie." Theron's part as a career criminal Ashley doesn't seem to be one that she had even been all that interested in, with the star saying she was instead attracted to the project only because of its director, saying, "Even though the movie might suck, I got to work with John Frankenheimer. I wasn't lying to myself, that's why I did it. I mean, he directed The Manchurian Candidate, which is like the movie of all movies." But while many actors who hate a former flop have had bad experiences during production, that wasn't the case with Theron. She may lament the role, but not the experience of making the movie, telling Esquire, "F regret, just f it." Reindeer Games wasn't the only flop of the decade for Ben Affleck. Just a few years later, the star was chosen to play Marvel's visually impaired superhero in 2003's Daredevil. On the surface, he seemed like the perfect pick. Young, handsome, and square-jawed. It looked like Fox might have another X-Men level hit on their hands. But the results were far from spectacular. In 2013, Affleck had just signed up to play another superhero in DC's Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and he talked to Playboy about his history with comic book movies, saying, "The only movie I actually regret is Daredevil. It just kills me. I love that story, that character, and the fact that it got f***ed up the way it did stays with me. Maybe that's part of the motivation to do Batman." Today, he looks back with regret on both heroic roles, as he's more recently opened up about how awful he feels about Justice League. Ben Affleck might regret the comic book clunker Daredevil, but on-screen nemesis Colin Farrell hasn't expressed any regrets over the bad reviews for the Marvel mishap. Instead, another movie from the 2000s has been the subject of his remorse. Farrell didn't hold back when talking about Miami Vice, the big-screen remake of the 80s TV classic that he made with Jamie Foxx. In it, he took the iconic role of Detective James Crockett, once played by Don Johnson on television. In 2010, he told Total Film, "I didn't like it so much. I thought it was style over substance, and I accept a good bit of the responsibility." While he admits that the movie wasn't going to be an award winner or fan favorite, he also acknowledges that it was a huge fumble, saying, "It was never going to be Lethal Weapon, but I think we missed an opportunity." It's not just that the movie was bad, but that he was in a dark place personally when he made it, as he entered rehab after production shut down, giving him very little to enjoy about the project, then or now. When all was said and done, the role of Detective James Crockett made him never want to play a cop again, a stance he left behind by the time he showed up in True Detective in 2015. The 2000s saw Mark Wahlberg expand his filmography with action comedies like The Italian Job and sci-fi romps like Planet of the Apes. His entry in the horror genre was 2008's The Happening, director M. Night Shyamalan's follow-up to the two-time Razzie award-winning Lady in the Water. Wahlberg's role in The Happening was a science teacher, Elliot, who gets caught up in a mysterious global disaster. It's the one movie he regrets making. During an interview with Collider in 2010, he discussed the big plot twist in the movie. Deadly plant life is trying to destroy mankind, telling them, "F*** it is what it is. F***ing trees, man. The plants. F*** it. You can't blame me for not wanting to try to play a science teacher. At least I wasn't playing a cop or a crook." The movie was Shyamalan's second bomb in a row, continuing a woeful losing streak. Wahlberg didn't fare much better either, following up The Happening with the poorly reviewed Max Payne and the lukewarm The Lovely Bones.
What? No!
Early in his career, Edward Norton had a run of critically acclaimed favorites, including Primal Fear, American History X, and Fight Club. Unfortunately, the next phase of Norton's filmography wasn't quite as successful, with a few poorly received efforts like Keeping the Faith and Death to Smoochie. There's only one role from this period that Norton outright regrets, however, the part of King Baldwin in Ridley Scott's ill-fated 2004 epic Kingdom of Heaven. In a 2007 interview with The Guardian, Norton looked back at the film after the release of the director's cut, which restored some 45 minutes worth of action, saying, "It was a really wonderful script, and it should have been a 3-hour film. It was one of those classic Hollywood dynamics. It was all the worst kind of corporate decision-making." He admits that he wasn't really all that interested in the film itself, but rather in being part of a massive production by one of Hollywood's most respected directors. And while he did get the experience, he looked back with a bit of disgust at the whole affair, reflecting, "I suppose I could have just gone and visited." Saving him from worse embarrassment, thankfully, is the fact that his role went uncredited in the film, and he wasn't a part of the movie's promotion, so some audiences may forget that he was even involved in it. An Oscar winner for the 1998 drama Shakespeare in Love, Gwyneth Paltrow was one of the biggest stars heading into the new millennium, but she also had a run of awful movies, highlighted by Ben Affleck's Bounce. Still, the one role she really regrets is her 2003 effort View from the Top, where she played Donna, a young woman from a broken home who sets out to build a new life as a flight attendant. In a scathing roast of the film, Entertainment Weekly said the entire production was little more than an excuse for guys to drool over Gwyneth and girls to debate whether she looks better with her skirts cut to mid-thigh or to within an inch of her butt. A massive bomb, the movie was torn to shreds by critics, and Paltrow doesn't disagree with them, telling The Guardian it was a terrible movie. But worse is that she says she was convinced to do it by producer Harvey Weinstein, against whom she later made damning accusations of sexual assault. As early as 1998, Paltrow was publicly commenting on Weinstein's behavior, demonstrating that she already had no love for the powerful producer. This suggests that it wasn't a positive experience making the film, even aside from its disastrous debut, providing plenty of reason for Paltrow to walk away with regret. Years before he was starring in Netflix true crime thrillers, Zac Efron was a Disney prince. In his first major role, Efron led the TV movie High School Musical as Troy Bolton, as well as 2 sequels throughout the 2000s. But in spite of all the success those films achieved, it's a role that Efron isn't happy with. Over the years, Efron hasn't held back about how he really feels about the High School Musical films. When talking to Men's Journal in 2016, Efron admitted that the role of Troy Bolton has weighed him down, telling the magazine, "I step back and look at myself in the past and I still want to kick that guy's ass sometimes. Like, that guy. He's done some kind of cool things with some cool people, but I mean, he's still just that kid from High School Musical. According to some, Efron has even privately said that he wishes he could go back in time and tell his younger self not to take the role. But whether he'd change his personal history or not, it's safe to say that playing Troy was a lot to get over, even if the paycheck was pretty sweet.
Definitely made me very popular, so that was interesting. I remember I could afford to move out of my house.
It's not all that often that you hear of a major star regretting a beloved smash hit, but that's the case with Katherine Heigl and her role as the uptight and pregnant Allison in the 2007 comedy Knocked Up. Despite scores of rave reviews, Heigl regrets being a part of the film because the film's script rubbed her the wrong way. She told Vanity Fair in 2008, "It was a little sexist. It paints the women as shrews, as humorless and uptight, and it paints the men as lovable, goofy, fun-loving guys. It exaggerated the characters, and I had a hard time with it on some days. I'm playing such a bitch. Why is she being such a killjoy? Why is this how you're portraying women?" While calling the shoot an amazing experience, Heigl said that it was the movie's unlikable female characters, especially her own, that frustrated her the most. Heigl did take some responsibility, admitting that she improvised at least some of Allison's attitude, but the script still has her looking back with regret.